the most annoying sound in the world?
Welcome to Rage Against the Mainstream, your full spectrum source for all things music, insight, and opinion. My name is Bill, and I'm joined here today with Steve.
Yo.
If you're listening to this, happy Memorial Day. Today is May 27th, 2019.
Freedom.
Unfortunately, we're not joined with Connor here today. Prior obligations, and he couldn't be here.
Yeah, isn't he sleeping?
Maybe.
Yeah, definitely sleeping. Dude, it doesn't matter.
So have you encountered anything new this week, Steve?
So, I obviously mentioned on our last episode, sorry again, we missed that week in between. Obviously, we had some obligations ourselves, but I did mention Tool. They played a show in Florida. They played 2 new songs. I, again, mentioned them. The more I listen to them, the more I start to, get more excited about an album. And coincidentally, I actually got this information. I get a lot of my news, just basic news, off of Loudwire. They did mention that Tool finally, and it's almost set in stone. I know how Tool is, but they did announce an actual album release date, which is super exciting.
Oh, dude, that's going to be sweet.
Yeah, and it's funny. The release date right now is August 30th of this year. That's exciting, but again, I remember how many times that, like, Danny Carey, both Adam Jones as well as even Justin Chancellor would mention, on their own terms, like, this is done, the drum tracking's done, waiting on Maynard to do vocals, Maynard's done his vocals, album's coming out this date, April, whatever, and then Maynard would be like, no, it's not. It was just such a clusterfuck.
Do you feel like it could possibly be like they're like toying with people to kind of bring up like
the hype? Well, the problem is the hype's already there. I mean, you figure it was 2006 when 10,000 Days was released. The hype is fucking there already.
Yeah.
But they are, hopefully this is it, and you're hearing it here again. It was off of Loudwire itself. August 30th right now, Tool is releasing a new album. Title is still yet to be known. That is
10,001 Days.
Yeah, with 40,000 days.
I saw Avengers Endgame.
Oh.
Yeah.
Just like, a few weeks back, I missed, last week I saw the Game of Thrones season finale. Holy shit.
We're not a spoiler podcast here, but if you haven't seen Endgame yet,
go see it.
Go see it.
They also, too, I found out, I guess it was like last week, they did actually break the box office record against Avatar.
Yeah.
They finally broke it, yep.
Like, dude, that's crazy. Like, I remember the last time I looked at that a few weeks back, it said they had already grossed like over $2 billion worldwide.
It's really funny. Dude, I saw this meme, though. It was funny because Avatar, Endgame, as well as Star Wars are all fighting at the box office to break each other's record sales.
Yeah.
And then it was like a meme of like, a character with like a bunch of money floating around, and it was like Disney. They were like, this is the best war possible because it's all going to them, dude.
That's just funny. I mean, to think about how big of an entity they are. Like, dude, alone they made $2 billion off Endgame.
Yep.
And I mean, I don't know how much that movie cost to make.
Yeah,
per
budget.
se, but they had to make at least $1.5 billion on that movie.
So, not to go on a huge tangent about this, but just to summarize, how'd you feel about it?
I loved it.
You loved it?
I feel like it ended the way it should have.
Yeah.
I feel like there was a couple parts of the movie that were drawn out.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when they go back and stuff. Like, I just feel like that was like drawn out. It could have been done a lot faster and probably a lot better, but I mean, it added into the part of the story.
Yeah, I heard they also discussed that point in time where apparently the movie was supposed to be 4 hours. And they were saying they cut out a lot, obviously, to shorten it down to 3. But as you were mentioning, like a couple of the scenes, there were some scenes that needed more to it.
Yeah.
Like, there was almost like a couple scenes that were rushed just for the storyline.
And there's a couple scenes that I feel like shouldn't have been there.
Yeah, but I'll tell you this,
It was
just
just filler.
yeah, and you're like me being a huge Marvel fan. Like my
Mhm.
fiance hasn't seen a single fucking movie. It's
Becky, you
weird.
gotta get on your game.
It's really weird. But I saw this thing where they're they're apparently releasing a box set of all 22 movies
really.
in one shot. Like
Oh
you
my
could buy
God.
all one, and I was like, that's perfect for her.
I mean, it's basically the I think they dubbed it the Infinity Saga.
Yeah,
22 movies.
Yep.
That's
And-
gonna be sweet.
but I'm gonna tell you this. Like, again, being a huge Marvel fan, following these movies for so long. All I'm going to say is, and also, like, I mean, it's been several weeks. So, I mean, spoilers aren't a huge deal, but I'm still not going to give any, just in case for the
we're
small
not
few.
ruining it for people.
Yeah, but that end scene, the
Mhm.
last, because there is a battle scene, obviously, but that last battle
Huge
scene, if
battle
you don't
scene.
get chills and tear up, and you'll know when the moment comes,
Mhm.
I don't even know if you're fucking human.
Yeah.
If you have invested quality into this, series, all
Yeah.
these movies, and you don't get some sort of, emotional feedback from that last, before the battle actually ensues, you're probably a robot. Probably a robot.
I'd say so.
Yeah, definitely.
Dude, it was just, I don't know. I'm not going to say it was the best Marvel movie. I'm not going to say it was my favorite.
I still think Infinity War was better.
I think Infinity War was
It was
better.
darker.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But to end the story or
It-
story
it was,
arc.
Yeah. It was like the right thing to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, going back like Infinity War, I was on the edge of my seat most of the time.
Dude.
And even when it ended, I was still sitting there like waiting for more. I was like, wait, like it can't end like
I
this.
read that Infinity War was originally supposed to end with just the snap.
That would have been fucking
And,
cool.
that was it. You weren't supposed to see nothing else.
That's, but you know what's funny?
you
Just
should have went for the head.
just
Done.
even saying that though, I think when that happened, I was still stuck on it. So even like the remaining 10 minutes of the movie, even the post-credit scene,
Yeah.
I was still stuck on that snap, like when that happened. So I think that was like kind of perfect because you get to see them all start to
I
fade
feel,
away.
I feel like a part of myself disintegrated with the snap too.
Yeah, that was like one of the, and there's several movies that gave me that same impact where you're just stuck sitting there.
Yep.
Even after the credit scene, and you're just, what?
Oh, and for those of you that are going to go see Endgame, if you haven't seen it already, there is no post-credit scene.
No.
Do not do what I did. I stayed till the very end. The credits are almost as long as the movie.
Yes.
There is no post-credit scene.
So we'll just save you that time. That's the only spoiler we're giving up here.
You're welcome.
On this day in music history,
On this day, music history. All right, 1962. At the Grammy Awards in New York, Andy Williams' Moon River from the movie Breakfast at Tiffany's is named both Record and Song of the Year.
And I said, what about Breakfast at Tiffany's?
1964. 11 schoolboys are suspended from a grammar school in Coventry, England for showing up with Mick Jagger style haircuts. Dude,
That's crazy.
that's really funny because you have to understand back in that time, even like when Elvis first came out, like being provocative individuals.
yeah.
Like, yeah, dude.
Well, it was almost like a non-conforming thing. Like you didn't conform, so you're going to be reprimanded for it.
Yeah.
But if I remember correctly, Mick Jagger didn't have like crazy hair. It's not like he was like, fucking Sid Vicious.
I
or
think it
something.
was just because they could identify that they were, kind of trying to be like Mick Jagger.
Yeah.
And Mick Jagger was really controversial
Mhm.
during that time, especially in the 60s. Also, 1977, the Sex Pistols. The single God Save the Queen is released. It's sold about 150,000 copies in a week despite being night parted on BBC's radio and declined by some record stores.
Ain't that something?
Yeah, I mean, but that makes sense. I mean, they were
Yeah.
obviously part of the anarchy movement in especially England. And it's funny because then it spread over here, like with the New York City-based, punk bands as well as the Ramones. Even the Clash coming from England as well. But dude, that song itself, and even the Nevermind the Bollocks album, I mean, obviously I can understand why it was being banned. I mean, again, that's going back to like things that were controversial back then that today
Yeah.
wouldn't be seen as such.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
They're
I mean,
pretty
that-
tame compared
yeah,
to today's standards.
Definitely. But yeah, that was definitely an integral part to
It's
like
still 150,000 copies is
yeah,
pretty good.
it's crazy. And also, too, just disclaimer for all those who are huge Sex Pistols fans that don't really know about the history, Sid Vicious is only on 2 recordings on that entire album.
Really?
Yeah, Glenn Matlock, who was actually the original bassist who they kicked out, which is quoted to say Johnny Rotten said that he washed his feet too much, and that's why they kicked Glenn Matlock out of the band for that. But they actually had him record majority of the songs when they actually did the album because Sid Vicious just couldn't play bass for shit.
Yeah.
He even like worked with fucking Lemmy from Motorhead, and just he sucked, dude. He sucked.
Sid Vicious was like the Nikki Sixx.
He was the
before Nikki
icon, dude,
Sixx.
but he was like the image of punk rock. So
Yep.
I got to give him credit for that.
Exactly.
Also, 1987, U2's concert in Rome sets off earthquake alarms as a result of noise level.
Who cares?
Who cares? 1994, after a 14-year hiatus, the Eagles reunite for a show in Burbank, California. Closing the show with Desperado. They soon launch their Hell Freezes Over tour, which becomes first tour to charge more than $100 for a substantial number of tickets.
Oh, wow.
I mean, are you paying $100 to go see the Eagles?
No. I mean, I wouldn't pay 100
Yeah.
just to have the novelty of saying that I
Saw
them.
the Eagles.
I'd probably 50. 50 would be my...
Because what is it? That Greatest Hits is the number one selling album of all time.
Yeah, exactly.
And don't get me wrong, like the Eagles are just hit machines, dude.
Mhm.
They're a really good band.
Yeah, exactly. But $100 is a little crazy. For a ticket.
Yeah,
Even
94
today's-
too.
yeah.
Like, yeah, that's a little. I don't know.
We all have Eddie Vedder to thank for lower ticket prices.
That's
Thank
true.
you, Eddie.
Foo Fighters too.
Oh my God.
God, $120 to go sit on the lawn at the BB&T Center.
Yeah, okay. I'm gonna sit in the lawn.
Yeah,
for,
I'm not beat. I'll hang
That
out in the
was
parking
ridiculous.
lot. Yeah, dude.
I'll just sit in my
Fucking
car and listen to the
amphitheater, dude.
fucking greatest hits.
Asshole. 2006, for the first time in their 22-year career, Red Hot Chili Peppers score a #1 album in the U.S. The two-disc set, Stadium Arcadium.
How did you feel about Stadium Arcadium?
I like it.
I thought it was cool.
Yeah, I like it.
I'm not a Red Hot Chili Peppers fan, but I did like that album.
It's weird because they're another band that really progressed over time because I'm a huge fan of Freaky Styley.
Yeah.
But then, a lot of their other stuff, especially like obviously the ones with the hits on it, obviously like Mother's Milk and Blood Sugar Sex Magic,
Mhm.
great albums. But even like Stadium Arcadium, like some good shit on there.
Yeah.
Even like people hate on Californication because it is like their generic album.
Yeah.
It's great. It's just good music, dude. You're not going to hear really a lot of bands that sound like the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
No.
You know what I mean? It's the
No,
same
no,
thing
no.
with like Sublime. They're kind of unique in their style.
Yeah, Red Hot Chili Peppers, I've always felt like, I don't know, they weren't like necessarily a rock band. They weren't necessarily like a reggae band.
It was like funk.
Funk band. Like
They were like,
they
yeah.
were everything.
They got a good
And
blend.
it worked.
2017. Despacito by Louis Fonsi and Daddy Yankee featuring Justin Bieber tops the Hot 100, becoming the first #1 on the chart sung mostly in Spanish since the Macarena in 1996.
Hey, Macarena.
Do you like that song?
What, the Macarena or
No,
Despacito?
Despacito.
All right, I have this like weird thing with like Spanish music, Hispanic music.
Yeah.
From working in a tire shop.
Oh, so
with-
you got like a little
with
soft spot?
Hispanics, yeah, I also found out that Louis Fonsi, this
Mhm.
guy on the song,
Yeah.
he's like the equivalent to like I don't know, Michael Bolton. He's like the Michael Bolton
Of like
for
this,
Hispanics, yeah.
really?
Yeah, he's like the dude that only chicks like. And like you can't be a dude in like Louis Fonsi. And like I was listening to him.
I don't even. Is that a compliment?
I don't know.
Like, have you seen Office Space? It's clearly not a compliment in that regard.
Well, no, but
Is your
like
name
you
Michael
also the thing too.
Bolton?
Like they also believe that soccer is a man's sport
Of course.
and basketball is a girl's sport. And
Yeah.
up here it's like it's reversed.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
Oh, I don't want this to become like a debate of cultures, but
No,
at the
no,
same
no,
time,
no.
yeah, but I get what you're meaning. But it's funny with that song. There's there's a lot of songs that I hear on the radio, especially in certain settings where I'm just sitting there, just like watching, music video channels and like songs continuously play. Especially this song, I heard this so many
oh
fucking
my
times.
god,
I mean, I've even heard the original, like even without like Justin Bieber, it was
Mhm.
just Fonzie and Daddy Yankee. And
yeah,
here's the thing. I'm never going to go out and invest my time to listen to this album. I'm not going to go find this artist, but there are songs like this, for instance, that when I hear it, I'm not going to go quickly to change it off. If it's just on, it's on, and I don't
Yeah.
mind it. You know what I mean? Dude, and I'm going to tell you this. It's the same thing with like artists like Taylor Swift.
Mm.
First of all, if you catch me wearing like a Leprosy shirt by the band Death, there may be a chance that I'm listening to fucking 22 by Taylor Swift. You don't know. You never know, man. You know what I mean? Like, I got a soft spot for like catchy radio tunes from time to time.
yeah. I mean, it's like we went. It's like we were talking about before. Like if you can hum it back,
Yeah.
they did.
Can't
their
hate
job.
on it, man. It's good music. That's what the whole
Exactly.
point of the industry is.
Music news.
Evanescence are aiming to drop a new album in 2020.
Hmm.
This is our first topic here in music news. Evanescence's front woman, Amy Lee, has come out to discuss the band's forthcoming album and when fans can expect it. The band has discussed spending much of 2019 focusing on new music, but never had a specific timeline in place. This album will be a follow-up to the band's 2011 self-titled record. I don't think I've heard anything off of that.
No, I don't think so either.
Let's see. Amy Lee spoke to SiriusXM's Grant Radom about new music. She is quoted, "This is sort of a creation year for us. We're playing a few festivals and some headlining shows, a little bit, but not too heavy. And in the time in between, getting together and starting the writing process for a new album."
I mean, Evanescence is weird because they're kind of like, I put them in like that Linkin Park category.
Yeah.
Like there's songs that I've heard by them. I like, the style to an extent, but again, they're not a band that I was never super invested in. Like
No.
we talk about like Hybrid Theory and like Meteora, like those albums. I mean, a lot of people enjoy them, but me, just that style of music that I don't know. I never got so into it. But again, if I hear these songs, like I know them and they're good. I mean, but again, they never just.
You know
They
what
don't
song I
create
got a
a thing
soft
for
spot
me.
for is Broken. The
Yeah.
song that she did with Seether.
Yeah.
I always thought it was kind of cool.
That's the thing. Again, there's especially Evanescence. Like Linkin Park's different because they put out a lot of albums with a lot of good songs on each
Yeah.
album. Evanescence, I mean, unless you're a huge Evanescence fan, I don't think I've ever listened to a single album front to back.
No.
But then there's like certain songs, like I hear them, like if they come on the radio, like I'll be screaming "Wake Me Up," you know what I mean? Like while I'm driving or something. I mean, when it comes on, it's just like it's nostalgia.
Save me! John Lennon-owned Beatles-signed Butcher cover LP sells for $234,000 at auction.
Whoa.
A John Lennon-owned copy of the Beatles' infamous Butcher cover version of Yesterday and Today, autographed by 3 members of the Beatles, sold for $234,000 at a Beatles-themed auction this week.
That's crazy.
Could you imagine if I had all 4 signatures?
Yeah, that wouldn't even compare price-wise.
The vinyl copy, autographed by Lennon, McCartney, and Ringo.
Oh,
Then you
okay.
got George on there.
Yeah.
Featuring a back cover sketch drawn by Lennon, was the centerpiece of Julian's Auctions, the Beatle in Liverpool auction, which featured over 300 items of Fab Four memorabilia. This was a world record for a Beatles Butcher cover and the 3rd highest price paid for a vinyl. Darian Julian, the CEO/president of Julian's Auction, said in a statement, "The market is still developing, so we anticipate in the next 5 years to have the same record could bring $500,000 plus."
Where's that money go?
I don't know. I mean, I guess whoever owns it.
Yeah, I mean,
well,
because
it says
it's talking
John Lennon
about
owned. Probably goes to his estate.
I wonder. Okay.
Yoko.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh no. All right. Here's another one. Justin Timberlake and Missy Elliott receive honorary doctorate degrees from the Jack White one from a couple weeks ago.
The humane numbers.
Let's see. Justin Timberlake and Missy Elliott were honored with doctorate degrees from the Berklee College of Music on Saturday. This year's honorary doctorate recipients are being recognized for their achievements and influences in music and for their enduring global impact, the school said in a statement. I don't see how Missy Elliott has done anything that was that groundbreaking and that crazy. But Justin Timberlake with, NSYNC fame and whatnot,
And then he
solo
went-
success.
Missy Elliott, dude, especially in that like later 90s, early 2000s,
Yeah.
she was everywhere.
Yeah, but what did she do
She
that
was-
was groundbreaking, though?
I mean, she kind of paved that way for, other, female rappers. I mean, even like after Aaliyah
Yeah,
died and stuff.
What about Lil' Kim?
But that's what I'm saying. Lil' Kim was part of that same scene because Lil' Kim broke
Yeah.
off in the late 90s too after Biggie died and kind of she did her own
Yeah,
thing.
that's
But then
true.
Missy Elliott was like already there as a standalone. Even Missy Elliott came up later on and like with Busta Rhymes, even like in the mid 2000s.
Sierra.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
all these different female artists, even with that like rap culture, as opposed to just being like a side piece in a fucking music video. She really set the bar. I mean,
Yeah, that's true. That's
You
definitely
know?
true. Hey, here we're going to say it again here. Just keep listening to us. We can use some honorary doctorates.
yeah. Yeah, I'm on the way for my bachelor's. I take an honorary doctorate so I can be like, I'm Dr. Heim. I have an honorary degree in music theory.
Do you imagine going to a job interview being like, "Excuse me, it's not Mr. Eastlack, it's Dr. Eastlack."
Yeah, exactly. It's Dr. Timberlake now. Dr. Elliot. You
As
know
we're
what I
doing
mean?
like the whole Step Brothers routine, showing up to be janitors and tuxedos.
You're not a doctor. You're just a curly-headed fuck.
Here's another thing we got here. False active shooter reports causes panic and injuries at Miami's Rolling Loud Hip Hop Festival. A false active shooter report temporarily caused panic Friday, May 10th at Miami's Rolling Loud Festival. Some festival goers were injured as they quickly fled the Hard Rock Stadium following the false alarm. The Rolling Loud Festival organizers released a statement quoted as, "Shortly after 11 p.m. on Friday night, there was a disturbance that led a large group of fans to believe there was an active shooter within the festival grounds. The commotion resulted in these fans running out of the venue, some of whom were injured and were scared in the process. Security and public authorities immediately sprung to action, established it was a false alarm, and there was not an active shooter in the festival." Soon after the scare, as Hip Hop Festival allowed those fans who fled the grounds to return, and the show proceeded as planned with slight delays. Friday's lineup included Migos, Cardi B, YG, Lil Yachty, Rick Ross, and more. The guy, another person that was on this lineup here is the one that did that song "No Flex Zone." You hear that song?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In-
And, it is unknown who sparked the panic.
You know, it's funny. It's like you look at that lineup. It's like the same thing with like metal bands. I mean, you have to understand like a lot of the people that these artists bring to their shows. I mean, they say they don't know what ensued or even started the rumor, but I mean, obviously, it's not far fetched when you hear something happen at like a metal show or like a really a rap concert, especially with a lot of the artists that are involved in the setting are like known to be like that gangster type. And again, with like metal bands, same thing. Like you go to a metal show, it's like so much brutality. And then the atmosphere and the adrenaline, and then you just get into an argument with somebody, and it becomes something way more, and you forget why the fuck you're even at the show to begin with.
Yeah, exactly. Well, there's also a thing like with metal concerts and stuff too, like the low frequencies from the music unlock certain parts in your brain that, it just affects people differently.
Yeah, I mean, it really sets a tone. I wanted to add, too, speaking of metal, there is another bit of news I found also on Loudwire saying where I found the Tool information. Megadeth. I mentioned them a little while ago. I was a little upset about the idea of them releasing an album, which turned out to be just an anthology. It was called Warheads on Foreheads. But I did find on the same source, Loudwire, it says Megadeth is beginning to do their pre-production for the new album.
So would this be the most effective weapons in their arsenal now?
Yeah, I mean, I guess they're going to add to their arsenal. You know what I mean? They brought the AR-15s. Now they're bringing out the LMGs and everything.
The warheads.
Yeah. And it's funny because I think about, we talked about this prior. We didn't really elaborate on it, the metal genre in general. Like here you have a band, coming from the 80s, was real big in the thrash scene, especially with just the controversy of trying to separate from Metallica and how they were as like competitive bands. But here they are. They're releasing a 16th album. I mean, it could come out probably end of 2019, even 2020, depending on how some of these albums are written. And it's interesting because when we talk about the metal genre, it is so funny because, I mean, the benefit with Connor not being here, me and you, Bill, are like predominantly like into that metal scene.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I listen to you. Literally, you can lay it on the table. I'm gonna give it a listen. I don't judge bands just strictly based on their perception. I base it on like what I'm gonna fucking hear. But metal to me, and we talk about being one of the biggest growing genres to listen to, you think about all the subgenres. You think about the roots of some of these bands, especially like, for instance, a younger person getting into Megadeth on their 16th album who has yet to hear like Peace Sells or Killing Is My Business. And, even the bands that influenced them and those bands that were influenced like from them. I mean, there's just there's such a spider web of subgenres with the metal genre itself. It's ridiculous. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk about. Like I wanted to kind of give a little insight, and we'll keep this, obviously we will talk about other genres, but just for metal in general, because again, it's such a wide and the biggest growing genre at this point.
And nothing against Connor. We can't really do this type of topic with him here.
But no, Connor, we love you, but we're just using this opportunity to talk about a genre you're not too familiar with. But no, I want yeah. I want to hear from you, Bill. I mean, obviously there's selective genres that we're more familiar with. I mean, obviously I just want to hear you kind of talk about the roots of, certain genres, the artists that, kind of started that era, as well as the artists that kind of came from, just so on and so forth. Just kind of break down like, bands essentially that influence specific subgenres of the metal scene.
Okay. All right. Well, let's. I guess this gives me the prime opportunity to talk about probably,
here it comes.
arguably one of the greatest bands of all
Here it
time, in my
comes.
opinion,
Yep.
and probably the most important band of all time, the mighty Van Halen.
Debatable, but I'll allow it.
Well, here's the debate. This is where it'll
Go
come
for it.
into play. The way I see it is Van Halen was influenced by bands like Black Sabbath and Led Zeppelin, Eric Clapton,
Yeah.
Derek and the Dominoes, like that type
Yep.
of thing. And they took that music, dude, and they turned it into something else. And love it or hate it, hair metal, hard rock, whatever you want to call it, they basically lit the fuse for this giant, either it be a total shitstorm or arguably some of the greatest music ever, hair metal. And the thing is, hair metal sparked so many bands. I mean, it's another thing, like love 'em or hate 'em, you have Poison, Motley Crue, Scorpions, you have Warrant,
Yeah.
Bon Jovi.
Yeah.
But even Bon Jovi I feel like is a little like not even hair
Well, it's
metal.
the same thing with like Quiet Riot coming out in that
Yeah.
scene too. I mean, it was more so like the image, like the
Yep.
glam metal, because even Kiss was kind of like bunched in there as well.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is too, it the 80s and this hair metal thing basically started the whole like guitar god
Yeah.
whole thing.
Yep.
Like you always had like guitar players like Tony Iommi and Jimmy Page, but they weren't like guitar heroes or guitar gods. Now they're considered them. But back then there was no such thing. It was like, no one knew who the guitar player from Lynyrd Skynyrd was.
Yeah.
It was like that kind
Well, it
of
was
thing.
even like the Allman Brothers. I mean, a lot of
Yeah.
people didn't even know Dwayne Allman was this phenomenal guitarist.
Insane guitarist.
Yeah.
And
And you figure Cream too. I
Yeah,
mean, Cream
exactly.
wasn't predominantly Eric Clapton, but when he separated, then you got
Yep.
the idea.
exactly.
Yeah.
My big thing with Van Halen comes into play with they were basically, I guess in a way you could say they were like the godfathers of hair metal.
Yeah.
And without Van Halen, you wouldn't have these bands like Poison. You might have had a Motley Crue, maybe, but
yeah.
they wouldn't have been as successful if there wasn't other bands to lump them in with. Like Queensryche, Poison, like I said before, Warrant, Skid Row, Bon Jovi,
Yeah. Rat.
There's another one. But yeah, I don't know. And I feel like with Van Halen creating basically this genre of music, it then in turn made it to where there was something for people to rebel against. Like the punks would rebel against this hair metal thing.
I don't even think so much it was the punks. It was like that, what started eventually the Big Four thrash.
Yeah.
Like Metallica. But it's funny because you bring up bands like Metallica, Anthrax, Megadeth, Slayer. That, yeah, again, you said there was something to rebel against to create another genre, but
Exactly.
you can't fucking say that they didn't draw influence from the bands
Oh
that
my
were.
God.
Because that's the thing. When you talk about the guitar gods thing, where it became predominantly seen to have this one fixated guitarist as
Yep.
well as this flamboyant frontman, like for instance Sebastian Bach and Skid Row. I
Exactly.
mean, these guys had
Janie
voices,
Lane
they had
and Warren.
personalities, man, and especially like really good guitarists and the music itself. And you talk about prior to that, like for instance, like Black Sabbath, Led Zeppelin, they had a really bluesy aspect where their songs were just well constructed to allow to, like, because even Black Sabbath winded up evolving.
Yeah.
The same way Led Zeppelin winded up evolving,
Mhm.
to become more Jimmy Page dominant.
Exactly.
Robert Plant's out there, like Ozzy's out there. You got to see Iommi out there. You know,
Yep.
this whole scene, and then setting that tone to like really get the rebellious stage where when Metallica came out with the Kill 'Em All album, and that was like kind of like a fuck you, but then look what that technically spawned from the hair metal scene.
Yeah.
If that
I
wasn't
mean,
there, I mean,
Like I'm pretty sure I've read interviews to where almost every one of those dudes from the Big Four has cited Van Halen as an influence.
yeah.
I mean, that's a little bit of the idea of them being an extremely important band.
Yeah.
And I definitely think they're not an underrated band by any means. But I think for what they did for music as a whole, I believe that they're extremely underrated for that.
And it was cool because when you talk about the hair metal scene being there, and you figure bands like Metallica, you know, and Megadeth as well, drawing influence from that. But you have to understand there was like already bands out there to more so relate to that like hard edge without the makeup and stuff. Like Judas Priest was there,
Yeah.
Motorhead was there,
Yep.
Iron Maiden especially with the Paul Di'Anno era.
But
You
they
know?
they didn't have the aggression that, you know, the big four
Yeah.
quote unquote had.
I mean, Motorhead always did.
Yeah,
Motorhead always
Motorhead's
had
a
that.
different story.
Yeah, and even Slayer too. With Slayer's been around a lot longer than people think, as we talked about before. Like Rain and Blood is not their first album.
No.
You know what I mean?
What is it? Hell Awaits, right?
No, Show No Mercy.
Oh, Show No Mercy.
Yeah, Hell Awaits was the second one.
Yep.
But it is cool because there's always these like undertow bands. Because even Judas Priest, like their earlier stuff
Mhm.
was not like really like it had a cool like heavier tone. But come on, Breaking the Law is a little corny compared to like the Painkiller
Painkiller.
album. Yeah, dude, you know what I mean?
They were honestly, if you put those two like back to back, they're like an entirely different band.
Totally
like, It's like
different,
not
dude.
even Judas Priest.
And it's the same artist. That's
Yeah.
what the crazy thing is.
That's part of the evolution thing, man.
Yeah. And then you talk about with like the thrash genre. I mean, especially after the heavy metal scene died down with like that hair metal and that glam metal concept, and then you talk about like other subgenres. Like in the '80s, it's one of the most difficult genres to get into. But when people like listen to them, like especially like death metal,
Yeah.
black metal, and you meet these people, and immediately your first reaction is when you hear the music like violent. These people are weird, like you know what I mean. But some of these people are like doctors and veterinarians and just
Yeah.
well-educated individuals, and their craft is just a little different than what people are accustomed to. But the music itself is so related. Like we talk about live shows. I've never seen so much camaraderie. Like, you go sit at a fucking airport and nobody wants to talk to you, but you get into a
Yep.
mosh pit and you're pushing and hitting people and you become like best friends afterwards.
Exactly.
It's so weird, but it's just such a excellent,
It brings
vibe.
people together.
It's amazing. It really is.
It's like an unspoken like brotherhood or family.
Yeah.
You know?
Because you watch it and then you see someone fall and immediately the pit stops to pick that person up. Like that's
Exactly.
just where you get the vibe. Like some of these people, regardless of the music they listen to, are like some of the nicest people you'll ever meet in
Yeah.
your entire life.
I feel like black metal and death metal, like they definitely get like a bad rep
Yeah.
because I think people just see it as like the screaming vocals and
Immediately they shut off.
exactly.
Immediately they shut off.
But you'd be hard pressed to find. I mean, I might get crucified for this one, but you'd be hard pressed to find a better drummer, and you'd be hard pressed to find a better guitar player than the kind of ones that you would find in a death metal band.
Even just the structure, because when we
Yes.
talk about death metal, and I'll bring up, we won't like expand too much because there's just so much, but you talk about Godfather of hair metal being Van Halen, Godfather of death metal being Chuck Schuldiner in the band Death.
Oh my god!
I mean, they almost called it because, Possessed was out as well. You figured you had Venom and Slayer that kind of sparked that scene, but it wasn't until, Scream Bloody Gore came out.
Yep.
And the Death by Metal, even EP that was prior to that, they were calling it Death's Metal because they didn't know how to really describe the genre.
dude, I could only imagine what that shit sounded like back then.
People were like, what the fuck is this?
And like you
Is it
listen to it
serious?
now, it's funny because you listen to it now and it's extremely tame for
yeah.
what
Compared to
today's
how-
standards are. But back then, dude, like that shit was heavier
Yeah.
than Slayer, which was the craziest shit around at the time.
Like when you hear Possessed Seven Churches, they consider that like one of the first death metal albums. And if you
Yeah.
listen to that, and then you put it even in the progression with the '90s with the Tampa scene, like when Morbid Angel came out with Altars of Madness, you had Deicide coming out, and it started to get more and more brutal. But just going to Death specifically, when we talk about the musicianship quality,
Mhm.
like here was literally Chuck was just such a master of his craft. I mean, it was always
Yeah.
different musicians because he wanted his albums to sound like it was his baby. That was literally his
Exactly.
child when he was making every album. And Death is one of those bands, all the way from Scream Bloody Gore to Sound of Perseverance. Every album, front to back, is just quality musicianship.
Sound of Perseverance was supposed to be a Control Denied.
Control
record, right?
Denied, yeah, and there's a lot of shit where they said that because they had to make the album, there was a lot of filler and there was a lot of Control Denied stuff. But I'm gonna put it this way: that fucking album, filler or not,
Insane.
dude, it's absolutely crazy.
Yep.
Because a lot of them are 8-minute tracks. Like even just Voice of the Soul, the instrumental.
Yeah.
Dude, that you hear that, and as a standalone instrumental, knowing it's coming from a death metal band, just to hear that, you get to really understand these guys are just not going out there doing blast beats and playing fast chugging guitar riffs, and
Exactly.
just like as loud as they can. Like, and then you also look up when they actually have lyrical content.
Yeah.
Like Chuck wasn't just fucking talking about dumb shit out there.
And the best part about that album, might even be, arguably the greatest cover of all time.
The Painkiller. Speaking of that,
Painkiller.
yeah, dude, it's even funny on Human they cover God of Thunder by Kiss.
Yeah,
it's fucking awesome,
dude. Honestly, I feel like Painkiller, their version of Painkiller, is better than
the
Judas
original.
Priest.
I agree.
100%.
I agree.
I don't know, man. I definitely feel like for people that aren't a part of that like underground thing, or people that aren't familiar with Death, they are easily one of the most underrated bands of all time.
Yeah, and it's funny because you meet
super
somebody. Yeah, you meet somebody that's like really into death metal, and you mention Death. It's almost like that's like mentioning I love thrash metal and I listen to Anthrax. I mean, they put it out there as like Death is one of those generic bands, but to people that aren't familiar with the genre, I remember the first time I heard Death. The first song I heard was "Flesh and the Power It Holds," and I was like, "Yo!" And then I went back and I heard Leprosy, and you got to hear such a different fucking band.
I remember the first time me and you met. And you're like, oh, you like metal? You probably listen to like Attack or some horse shit.
Yeah,
and I was
like Texas and Joel.
I was like, dude, do you ever hear this band called Death? And you're like, what?
Yeah, it was impressive because that was, like I said, death metal. It was so weird because like growing up, I mean, obviously my father wasn't, putting on "Blessed Are the Sick" by Morbid Angel.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm listening
either.
to fucking Steely Dan and Phil Collins. So,
well, then again, I grew up in a type of household to where like Ozzy was king.
yeah.
Like Ozzy and Van Halen were like always in the CD player.
Yeah, my father was so generic. I just heard whatever came on the radio. Like, I mean, Phil Collins and Genesis and fucking Styx, dude, is like stuck in my head.
I'm so glad I missed all that.
Dude, it's just, that's the thing. I didn't grow up in a real big music household, and like what the friends I hung out with, that's what really exposed me to all these different genres. But then it's funny because I listened to a lot of music theory for like some of my friends that really got into like actual quality musicianship. And that's when I started getting into like Miles Davis, John Coltrane, a lot of classical music like Leonard Bernstein. And then I went back and got to understand it. Like when you really understand the quality of musicianship for some of these bands, black metal, death metal, thrash metal, and you get to hear the construction of these songs and the amount of effort it actually takes to make some like time signatures.
It's not just super low tune guitars and 300 BPM double bass on triggers. Like
don't get me wrong, you'll find some bands like that.
Yeah,
they're really fucking.
Yeah, but they're the bands that no one likes.
Exactly.
That's the thing. Or no. Those are the bands that the general public will like.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
Like you know, if you show someone, for instance, I don't know. Actually, let's bring this into deathcore.
Yeah.
You show someone Job for a Cowboy song, and they're like, oh my God, this is great. Yeah. This is amazing. And it's like, I guess, I mean, that there's a couple Job for a Cowboy songs I enjoy, like a lot, like really enjoy. But in the grand scheme of things, like, they're like grindcore, deathcore. But what about like Pig Destroyer? Like they're pretty fucking good.
Yeah.
And, I'm not discrediting anything with deathcore because I enjoy it. I mean, I know you don't like breakdowns and shit.
Yeah, I mean, I got a huge argument because like when I moved and I went into, the school that we went to after I moved out of Camden County, I was living, my parents, and then the school I went to, I mean, everybody was just that scene kid, all part of the deathcore, metalcore scene. And I'm coming from their idea, like, give me an instance. Like when you think grindcore, what comes to your mind?
When I think of grindcore?
Yeah.
Well, first band that pops up is Job for a Cowboy because it's just so...
And it
was like beat into my head.
Yeah, and it's funny because there's like a different level of understanding. Like grindcore, the first thing I think of is Scum by Napalm Death.
Yeah.
That was like to me, and like Terrorizer, who were all the guys with the exception of like Trey Azagthoth from Morbid Angel, the band Terrorizer, grindcore. That's, and I remember a couple people, I'm not going to name names, but we know who we're talking about, specifically part of the scene, drummer, we know, okay? Me and him were getting arguments.
Yep.
Because I'm like, yo, Scum by Napalm Death. He was like, that shit's garbage. It was made in the 80s.
Exactly.
I don't want to listen. Because you put on like Scum by Napalm Death and you're listening, like there's literally one song there that's probably like 3 seconds long.
Yeah.
It's just and it ends, you know what I mean? But for me, I mean, like listening to the roots of some of these bands that develop these opinions and these views, and you're talking about deathcore especially.
Yeah. And
then you get that debate of like the metal elitist and like the people that listen to the generic metal and don't have the understanding.
Exactly.
But there it goes again where I can say there's certain bands that I actually enjoy, like Parkway Drive, for instance.
Yeah.
Do you like Parkway Drive?
Yeah, I really like Parkway Drive.
Their
new album's actually really good if you haven't listened to it.
Yeah, I mean, you showed me that new As I Lay Dying, and I'm not a fucking fan.
No. The new Parkway Drive is totally different.
Okay. Because I was... All right, listen. I was with my aunt. I had to go to a Warped Tour. This was back in like 2014, I want to say.
Yeah.
Went to Virginia Beach. And my cousin...
Oh, no, the horror.
Yeah, I mean, but here's the thing. I never mind going to see live music. That's the difference. So I went there, and I remember, like, Of Mice and Men came out, Motionless in White. I know Yellow Card played, and I just was not into it. But Parkway Drive came out, dude. I was fucking feeling it, man.
Dude, they're
and
a
that's
good band.
I was fucking feeling it. And, like, here comes me talking, like, you know, I'm really into Altars of Madness. I'm really into, you know...
Speaking of metal elitist.
Yeah, I'm really into, like, Deicide and, you know, really just traditional death metal, like Benediction, Seance, all these older bands. And, like, here I am listening to Parkway Drive, who's considerably part of that Suicide Silence, Job for a Cowboy type scene. But I fucking liked it, man.
I don't know. I feel like Parkway Drive is like an entirely different. They're not in that whole spectrum. They're almost like borderline. I don't know. I wouldn't
listen.
I wouldn't go as far as say they're like part of the hardcore genre. They definitely dabbled in it. But
when you say hardcore, you talking about like Hatebreed?
No. When I say hardcore, you know what I mean. Like the whole like a Day to Remember, like
yeah.
Sort of, you know, for a certain point in time there, like that line was blurred.
Yeah.
It was like really blurred. When I mean hardcore, I mean like August Burns Red or like Texas in July what's another one? I don't know. But regardless, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like I feel like Parkway Drive is sort of in that, but like on like the heavier end of the spectrum.
But does that come from the scene of people that follow them, do you think? Because that music standalone, for me to be able to enjoy it,
yeah.
And I'm not saying like if it's hardcore I won't like it, because also too that's another thing. My idea of hardcore is like
Hatebreed.
No, but even so, like punk rock, like back in the day, like hardcore punk. You know, what I mean?
Yeah.
Like some of those hardcore bands were considered in the 80s.
SOD.
Like, yeah, I mean SOD was more thrash. You know, like Stormtroopers to Death.
Yeah,
that was more like thrash. I'm talking about like GBH. You know,
part
of the hardcore scene. But Parkway Drive, and I don't want to get too stuck on them. But for them to be a band, like I couldn't put them in that Texas in July, August Burns Red
That's
scene.
what I mean. You can't.
Yeah.
Like I feel like it would be extremely unfair to them to do that.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't seem like they follow that formula.
Yeah.
You know, like the verse, chorus breakdown, slower breakdown.
Yeah.
Even slower breakdown.
But do you know that like the saying you are who your friends are?
Yeah.
You can kind of get an idea about a genre of a band, if it's hard to put it, based on who they tour with. Like, for instance, you wouldn't see Parkway Drive touring with Cannibal Corpse.
No, you wouldn't.
You know what I mean? But you'll see Dying Fetus tour with Cannibal Corpse.
Yes.
Like, for instance, the show that was a few weeks ago, or last week, I should say, Slayer toured with Cannibal Corpse, Amon Amarth, and Behemoth. Like, not Behemoth, fucking Lamb of God.
Yep.
There's another band.
Lamb of
God, because Lamb of God is the same way, because you figure their earlier stuff, As the Palaces Burn, you know, like my favorite album, Ashes of the Wake, but then when they went further into like Sacrament, you can see the scene adjust. Like, for instance, when Slayer's out there playing, it's like a push pit, like your traditional metal push pit. Lamb of God comes on, it's the dudes doing karate kicks and, you know, throwing their arms, and it's like that real karate breakdown fucking slam dancing shit.
I don't know. I think this all just goes into like how the public will perceive this. Like when I hear a Lamb of God breakdown, I don't put that in like the same as like a Day to Remember breakdown or like I don't know, Texas in July breakdown or August Burns Red breakdown. Lamb of God's pretty fucking nasty.
That's what I'm saying. Like their sound itself, like you can put them on that bill. Like I saw them a couple times.
They're a very
Anthrax.
versatile band.
They are. But I'm saying based on like the people that follow them, it's just funny because you see the same people that would listen to like, you know, A Day to Remember and those bands like out there in a pit.
I feel like
Lamb
of God now is like that stepping stone band.
Yeah.
Like if you like Lamb of God, then you're going to like.
So Lamb of God is almost like to bridge the gap. Because, for instance, Ashes of the Wake could bring you into all the traditional death metal, whereas like Sacrament and Wrath and Beyond can bring you into like A Day to Remember type.
Thrash. Like they were a very thrashy
They very
band
are. And his
beginning.
vocal style is not so guttural where you can actually hear what he's saying to the point where it is catchy enough where his vocal complex is perfect.
Dude, I love Lamb of God.
Their musicianship is undeniable.
Dude, they're two of the best guitar players. Chris Adler's an insane
He's
drummer.
amazing on drums.
Let's put it this
so
way.
precise.
He's so good that Dave Mustaine had him.
Yeah.
And we all know Dave Mustaine's known to be like an asshole with members.
Yeah, he's like the same way like Chuck was, you know, very particular in who he uses.
Like, dude, I think Gene Hoglan might be one of the greatest death metal drummers, and
Gene
Chuck
Hoglan
got
was-
rid of him.
Yeah, I know.
Like that, that says something.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I definitely feel like Lamb of God might be that, that bridge.
Yeah.
Like if you like these guys, you're going to like even more and
Yeah.
farther beyond.
It is funny too, because when we talk about people that listen to bands, and you can
Mhm.
kind of get like a character image on somebody based on the way they dress, and you could ask them like, "Hey, do you like this band?" Like I'm not to say I'm judgmental, but yeah, I'm fucking judgmental. If I see
Yeah.
you wearing certain T-shirts or your hair's parted a certain way, I can get an idea on what type of music you listen to if you're
Exactly.
flamboyant enough. Because some people hide it where you couldn't even ask. Like,
Exactly.
but I'll talk to certain people, and it's funny because I'll ask first, like, "Do you listen to Suicide Silence? Do you listen to Parkway Drive?" And kind of get that feel to
I
dive
remember
in.
that rap sheet question there.
Yeah, of course. I have to do this because like music is just such an absolute hobby of mine. But it's funny because Lamb of God, I could never ask that question because that can go two fucking ways.
Yeah.
That can go to like, yeah, I love Lamb of God. You know who
Yep.
I also love? I like
The Day
Morbid
to
Angel.
Remember.
Yeah, exactly. That's the whole crossbreed. It's like, dude, you're gonna go one way or the other because it's gonna be also based on the time you liked Lamb of God.
Yeah, exactly.
Like for instance, Ashes of the Wake. I know people that hate that album but love Sacrament. And I'm like, that makes no sense.
yeah, but I feel like they sort of went. Not only did they evolve with their music, but they also sort of went back to their roots with like Wrath.
Yeah.
Like I thought that was insane. I thought Wrath was extremely good.
Yeah, it's tough for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough. But I did like the fact that recently when they put out the Burn the Priest cover album, when they actually went back to
Yeah.
their old name and they did a lot of cool covers. You know, they did the Melvins.
Mhm.
You know, they obviously covered an SOD song on there. But
Jesus built my hot rod.
but going back to like just saying with the heavy metal genre in general, I just it's one of those genres because like rap's even the same way, and it's a shame like where rap went recently, you know, in the recent times. It's the same thing with like blues, punk rock even today, like the pop punk scene,
Yeah.
the emo scene, like heavy metal. If you see about it, like mentioning going back to that Megadeth album, I mean, it's just constantly happening. I mean, when I
Yeah.
mentioned you like Monstrosity, here's a death metal band from the '90s with Corpse Grinder from they released
Yep.
a new album. DSI released a new album. Megadeth's recording new music. Metallica's still touring. Slayer is apparently on their quote unquote final tour still.
I'll believe that when I don't.
When they're
see
actually
it.
done. Yeah.
I mean,
Judas
they
Priest is
were
still
great.
touring.
They were great when we saw them.
Yeah.
They were good.
They're
but
fucking they're excellent.
I just don't. That's another thing too with this like farewell tour. Do you know how many times I saw Motley Crue on their
a
farewell tour?
Yeah.
I saw them 3 times.
And here's the thing. I don't knock it because I'm still going to go see them.
Exactly.
And I'd rather you be out there touring than like what I said with Megadeth prior to me knowing they're putting out the new album and just releasing compilations to make
building
money.
new weapons.
Like, go earn your money. Yeah. The arsenal. Hello, me. Meet the real me.
I'm gonna start using that one.
Yeah, that's
These are my most effective weapons in my arsenal.
Here you go. Here's a 6-pack of beer. These are the most effective weapons in my arsenal. But yeah, it's such an amazing genre. And I mean, people like, for instance, my father won't ever get into it. My sister doesn't listen to it. You know, there's a lot of people that don't. But if you're familiar with some of the earlier bands, when we talk about like the ones that kind of stemmed into it, like Venom with the new wave of British heavy metal, Diamond Head, even.
Yep.
I mean, a lot of these bands that spark the influence, and then you can kind of progress. It's almost like a tapering process. You know, you start with the earlier, easier listenings like Iron Maiden as well, Metallica, Megadeth, Slayer is a little tougher, Motorhead, but then you can kind of dive into it and you realize like, dude, it's like the Narnia of genres. It's
Yeah.
like an open fucking sandbox world of music.
Well, I'm gonna throw this one out there for those of you listeners that enjoy metal music and you haven't seen it. I would suggest watching Metal: A Headbanger's Journey.
Yeah.
Like that'll open up your eyes.
Oh yeah.
Or even Metal Evolution. Remember that was on VH1 for a while?
Yeah.
The TV series of that?
Yep.
You'll learn so much from watching that movie. You'll learn about the subgenres. You'll learn about where all this stuff came from.
Yep.
And why it's important. And who is important.
Yep.
And, you know, based off of that, you can make your own assumptions.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. It's kind of, you have to have the ear to even listen, like I said, the earlier bands. But
Yeah.
then if you can kind of like expand more and, you know, it's like an acquired taste. Because don't get me wrong, there's certain songs that I heard for the first time. I thought it was garbage. And now they're like, I love them.
Yeah.
You know, that's how it is with metal. It's a very, like, it's an easy genre, but it's like a very tough genre.
I
Kind
also
of have to like
feel
make
like
that breakthrough.
I also feel like with the way that like production and stuff is improving, like quality wise, I feel like that's also bridging the gap
Yeah.
for having people listen to this type of music. Like if you listen to like Eaten Back to Life versus like Kill,
Yeah.
as like a like I'm going to put myself in like someone that's never heard this type of music before, I'd be more inclined to listen to Kill because it sounds cleaner.
Yeah, but then you can kind of like they said, like with the like starting and the tapering, you could go backwards.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
start
That's
to
what
get
I mean.
more. Yeah, that's perfect.
You know, like if you like this, then you're going to go down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
If you like the Black Album, you're probably going to like Injustice for All. If you like Injustice for All, you're going to love Master of Puppets.
I would start at Injustice for All. I could even start at Master. We're not starting at the Black Album. We're not even going back to this, dude. Why bring that up?
Podcast number 7.
PTSD.
Bringing Metallica back.
Fucking
podcast
bullshit.
number 6.
I'm
sorry.
so sick of it, dude. We look like fucking fanboys for Metallica.
I mean, I got a Metallica tattoo.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I mean, it is what it is.
I have a Misfits tattoo. I barely mention them. This is getting out of hand.
You've mentioned the Misfits a couple times.
Briefly. Very subtly.
Well, you know, it would be a different story if Metallica,
I wish we could have this on video so people could see this quote-unquote Metallica tattoo you have.
We're not getting into this.
It looks like it was done in the county jail.
It sort of was done in the county
Jesus
jail.
Christ.
It's a $15 special from your drummer's brother.
Unbelievable. You get what you pay for.
Yeah, I'll definitely do it. All right, guys. So I would say last week, but the last podcast that you guys heard, we suggested for you to watch the biopic major cinema movie Straight Outta Compton.
Yeah.
In my opinion, I think Straight Outta Compton might be one of the best music movies like ever.
It is really good.
Like
Also, real quick, edit. I did want to mention this because on the last episode, I mentioned the thing about Nipsey Hussle. I'm really upset about that. Bill didn't fucking edit it. I feel like an asshole. I apologize to all our listeners out there. Yeah, but I just wanted to make a quick update on that. Nipsey Hussle did not play Snoop Dogg. Lakeith Stanfield did. The quotation was that Snoop actually wanted Nipsey Hussle.
Yes.
Yeah, and you refused to edit that, and I'm kind of upset.
It's not that I refused. It was a minor overstep.
It's okay. I'll remember
I apologize. My apologies, listeners.
Not a problem.
Sorry.
It's good.
I feel like Straight Outta Compton, dude, even if it wasn't NWA, if it was a fictional band or if NWA was fictional,
yeah,
it would still be a good movie.
No, and again, I don't want to go too in depth on this because I want Connor to be here because I do want this to be another thing to process with the idea of early's hip hop, like early '90s or 80s. Late '80s, yeah, even into the 2000s. Because this movie, as a standalone, like you said, as just a motion picture, just a movie, it gives you a good insight, especially with like what happened behind the scenes with like the production companies. You got to see Suge Knight, you got to see like Snoop coming onto the scene, you get to see the involvement of like where Ice Cube wound up, what happened through Eazy-E.
Yep.
I mean, you get to see a lot of shit happen, and it kind of gives you that feel of like what became rap going forward.
And actually, the only person I believe that gave the movie any kind of shit was Jerry Heller because it portrayed him to be very bad.
It did.
But I mean, in the grand scheme of things, well, you have to think about it in the way a motion picture is. Usually in every movie, there's got to be a villain.
You have to.
And it just so happens that it's him.
Yeah.
I mean, do I think that he was, out to get everybody from the beginning? Probably not.
Well, yeah, you're going to have to dramatize for the sake of the movie. Yeah.
I mean, it's sad to say that it had to be him, but the way that the history was within the group, it was him.
Yeah.
Whether it be as dramatized as it was in the movie, it unfortunately had to be Jerry Heller, who is now sadly passed away.
Rest in peace. Damn shame. But like I said, I don't want to go too in depth with this because I do want to revisit this when we get Connor back on here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Done his nap or whatever he's doing.
So what?
Yeah.
So you liked it?
Yeah, on our
So you definitely liked that movie?
Yeah, I did love this movie. I actually saw it. I mean, I didn't see it the proper way, but I did see it immediately after it came out because I was
saw it through a video camera,
somebody else's video camera,
a viewfinder. You watched it
I
through
watched it through a kaleidoscope. I just had one of those like images where you shuffle, and it just happened to be a play-by-play.
Yeah. And there was
it was but I got over it. But yeah, we'll revisit this more so when Connor's back on here because this is definitely, again, as something I do want to evolve on and talking about with the rap scene as well. But yeah, let's just, between me and you, we'll rate this thing on our scale of 1 to 10 here, Bill.
I'm going to have to go about this in a very unbiased way. I feel like as a movie about a band or about a group, it doesn't necessarily have to be whoever. This movie could have been about anybody, and it still would have been amazing. Me personally, I'll give this movie an 8.5 out of 10. Yeah, I feel like it was shot really well. I felt like all the parts went together very well. The ending, it's sad, but it just shows like there was this larger than life thing.
You know, it's really funny. You say 8.5. This is going to be the first time in history on this show that I'm going to rate something higher than everybody else and not get shit for it because I'm giving it a 9.
Really?
I'm giving it a solid 9. Because we go back when I mentioned, like, I like those movies done with actors to portray things because I get to get separated from the realistic thing, but kind of get my own feel and create my own idea of, like, this band and what they did. And you get to see real life shit that you only heard about as opposed to, like, what was actually filmed and what they're able to show. So, yeah, I'm giving it a solid 9 because, again, as a standalone movie by itself, it could have been about anybody. Well fucking done. And then, again, the bias concept, I love NWA. I love the Eazy-E solo shit, Ice Cube, Snoop, as well as even Dre and what he did later on with M and 50 going forward. Yeah, I mean, I'm giving it...
I feel like they should have showed, like, the beginning.
I don't think they could go that far.
I feel like
because then that's a whole nother thing, dude. You know what I mean? But you knowing the history, I mean, you know how far that went. So you got, and that's something obviously going forward where they could have expanded more. But
here's something: have you ever seen the HBO docuseries, the Defiant Ones? Dude, you have to watch it. It's basically Dr. Dre and Jimmy Iovine, and it shows them, at whatever ages until they finally meet up and create Aftermath. Dude, it is amazing. They talk about everything. They talk about from Jimmy Iovine being the producer on Bruce Springsteen's Born to Run. They talk about it from basically how Bruce Springsteen wrote Because the Night Belongs to Love, is the Patti Smith song. That's Bruce Springsteen. They go all the way until Jimmy Iovine created Interscope, and he got 9 Inch Nails out of their record contract. Dude, I'm telling you.
What's called Defiant Ones?
The Defiant Ones. Dude, it is amazing. It's 3 episodes.
It's just a mini docuseries. Okay, that's all right.
Yes. The first episode's about Jimmy Iovine. The second episode's about Dre.
Collaboration.
The third episode is when they finally come together, and that's where you see like behind the.
Is it on HBO right now?
That you've never seen. It might be on HBO.
Okay, because I have HBO Go, so I've been watching Barry and
watch it, dude. I'm telling you, you will not be disappointed. All right, well, back to Straight Outta Compton here. You gave it a 9 out of 10. I gave it 8.5. We're right on par. Rotten Tomatoes gave the score an average 88%. The audience score for Rotten Tomatoes was 91%. Rolling Stone gave it a 3.5 out of 4 stars, and Metacritic gave it a 72%.
Metacritic's really harsh. I usually, again, anybody could debate this on me on how they get their reviews. I mean, I'll go in to watch movies blind all the time, but if it's something that I'm really hyped about, I'll check Rotten Tomatoes, and what I base it on is kind of like averaging between the critic score and the reviewer score, because you figure Rotten Tomatoes critic score is 88 and the viewer score is 91. But you also base it, you just got some fans that just like don't know shit and they just like NWA and then they watch it and they like it. Exactly. But the fact that they're so close like that, then I'm like, all right, it's got to be, there's something going on there. But Metacritic's always super harsh with it. So, I mean, to get a 72,
it's
the same thing when I say I give a movie 7 out of 10 and Connor and you both have to immediately like, what do you mean? And I'm like, dude, 7's good, man. Anything over a 5 to me, like it's worth a view. Whether you watch it more than once, that's going to be debatable, but it's at least worth a view.
Yeah. All right, we're going to roll into our personal suggestions for this week. What do you got for us,
So I mentioned this several weeks back, speaking of metal genres, Darkthrone, black metal band that obviously has a couple different sounds to them. I mentioned, obviously, the song that they released a little while back, The Hardship of the Scots. It's very doom, sludgy, not typical Darkthrone, but I'm going to bring up the album because it does come out May 31st, so a few days for that album release. Be on the lookout for that. Obviously, I'm going to bring that up the following week once I've heard the whole album, because that's consistently what I do with Apple Music. I just get the album immediately and listen to the whole thing. Absolutely, I just kind of zone out, just kind of dissect it. But yeah, the album is actually called Old Star, comes out May 31st by Darkthrone.
Awesome. My suggestion this week is called The Renaissance. It's by the band E-Town Concrete. The album came out in 2003. E-Town Concrete is rap metal, but it's not what you're thinking. It's not like Limp Bizkit. It's not Rage Against the Machine.
Okay.
This band is what Limp Bizkit wished they were. It's basically, imagine the physical embodiment of aggression.
Okay.
That's what this is. Like
What-
like
What is it again?
They're called E-Town Concrete.
What was the song? that you-
Mandibles.
Okay, I'll check that out.
Yeah, it's a good listen.
I'll check it
I
out.
mean, it's interesting.
That's the one song you'll recommend for me to get started with?
Yes.
Okay.
If you like Mandibles, you like the rest of
Then
the
go
music.
back. Okay.
All right. So this week, our group suggestion, me and Steve, we are suggesting to watch the documentary Hired Gun on Netflix.
Now, first off, the first thing you'll think about is like, oh, this is a movie, probably an action film about killing people or assassins or something.
Negative.
It is not that.
Hired gun is basically a industry term for studio musicians that get paid to play on albums that you may or may not have heard, loved, think it's somebody else playing, but it's really someone else they paid for $100 for an hour.
Yep.
Or a couple minutes to listen.
Brief example, we'll just talk about when Jason Newsted joined again. We'll talk about the band Metallica after Cliff Burton died. It is actually discussed in the film briefly.
Yep.
Him just coming up on stage during the Master Puppet Store. $500 a week, I think he was getting paid.
Exactly.
So yeah, I mean, just brief example to set the tone for the movie. It is about these like very underrated quality musicians that just get brought up in the spotlight for a brief glimpse of fame, just to help support these well-known acts.
And some of them make it, some of them
Some
don't.
of them don't. Some of them get a couple days. Some of them wind up staying for 30 years.
Exactly. And you may or may not grow a strong distaste for a certain musical icon.
Well, we will discuss on our next episode.
This will be discussed.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. Well, thank you for tuning in this week. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. Getting inside the minds of me and Steve here and our metal music taste, if you will.
Yeah.
Next week we have a guest coming in. That's pretty much all we got for you guys.
Yeah, he's our hired gun for podcast.
Exactly.
Perfect.
All right, guys. Well, that's it for this week. Thank you for tuning in. As of right now, we are now available on the Google Play Music app for all you Android users. You can now rejoice. You can now listen to our podcast next to your iOS friend. You know, step up into the 21st century.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Definitely.
That's it. I'm Bill.
I'm Steve.
We're signing off. Rage Against the Mainstream. Thanks for listening, guys.